So let's say you found the skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey everybody, Dapper Dinosaur here. Of course, you're on my channel. Y'all know this, but I'm also joined by Jackson Wheat. And before we get going, I want to read out one super chat and also acknowledge another one that I can no longer read out because it's gone. That first one was from Carrie Bronson, who left a $5 offering to The Void. Remember, The Void does accept donations. We also have one from Valkyrie Vision for $4.99, who says, "Just me and my seeing eye dog Lotus hopping into bed to watch this. Well, I hope that you and Lotus have a great time. Lotus sounds like a good dog." Jackson, how are you?
I be doing.
Nice. All right. Well, we're here to do more Jackson with Jackson, which is Dr. Charles Jackson. In this case, he's talking to us about bacteria are not evolving resistance to antibiotics, even though we can watch them evolve resistance to antibiotics in real time, or at least in time lapse. But first, I want to say, I'm going to turn off my noise gate here. So you're going to give me a second. So, because I'm going to pour a beverage, and now everyone gets to hear it.
The noises are out. They have escaped.
There we go. Look at that. I'm actually
Gate
pouring what in most of the Anglosphere is called a cider, and what in the United States is called a hard cider, because the USA has to be special.
We are pretty special. I'll give us that.
Actually, it comes from Prohibition, where there was an interest in cider-like beverages that were not alcoholic, and so to distinguish them from alcoholic ciders, which resurged after the end of Prohibition, since ciders had started to become associated with non-alcoholic beverages in the United States, people started referring to the alcoholic versions as hard cider, because hard was a word that was already being used to refer to alcoholic versus soft drinks. Anyway, that's enough etymology, because we're here to talk about Dr. Jackson, but we have drinking rules, Jackson. Do you remember the drinking rules?
Can I phone a friend?
You may phone a friend. Who would you like to
Hold
phone?
on. Dapper, I'm gonna call your phone.
I mean, I guess you can. You could just ask me. I mean, if you call my phone, I will put it on speakerphone.
Be like a 1 second delay between.
It'll
like,
be horrifying.
Hey Dapper, can you?
Yeah, it'll be horrifying. All right, so let's go through some of the drinking rules. All right, so these are relatively standardized for all my Tuesday shows, because those are the shows where we talk about complete nonsense and drink while we do it. Our first rule is that we drink whenever the creationist says something that is just so stupid we kind of have to, lest our brains melt. That's probably the most common drink trigger. We also have one for whenever they get something unironically right, and also they're not just quoting. So if they are actually factually accurate, we take a drink. That's our rarest drink trigger. We also take a drink trigger anytime the creationist tells a story that we're pretty sure didn't happen, tells a joke that didn't land or is just generally bad, mentions anything to do with the National Socialist German Workers' Party, their activities in the 30s and 40s, or any prominent members or leaders thereof. We also take a drink anytime that Godzilla or Mothra come by, or King Ghidorah, and there's a couple ways that might happen. One is somewhat randomly as a sound effect. The other one is, if you're a channel member, which by the way starts at $1.99 a month if you want to, you may super chat, and if you do, you can include one of the 3 kaiju emojis. We'll take a drink for that. Also, if anyone super chats anything to the effect that AIG are a bunch of dicks, because, well, quite frankly, they like to copyright claim everything, then, yeah, we take a drink for that. But the tricky bit with that is, YouTube likes to censor that kind of thing. So you have to be creative on how you get that across. Other than that, I think that covers all. Oh, nope, predictions? Forgot about predictions. If one of us makes a prediction about Dr. Jackson's next argument, we'll take a drink if the prediction is correct. And I think that is it for drink triggers. Please do know I am still running my Patreon drive. I'm hoping to get to 400 per month. Currently, I need 108 to get there, so well past the halfway point to get there. It starts at $1 a month. There's a 10% discount if you want to pledge annually. So yeah, please go ahead. You go to the $5 tier and you get your name in the credits, and subsequent tiers beyond that have even more. We'll mention it again a couple times, but we have a $2 super chat from Vandalia1998, who says, here is a drink trigger with a Godzilla emoji. So, you know what, Jackson? Cheers.
Here we go.
That's pretty good. I got one of the drier of the ciders that were available to me. So I'm not much of a
dry liquid.
Well, dry in terms of alcoholic beverages refers to how sweet something is.
I was just being facetious.
Oh, well, now you know.
It was a joke that didn't land. Take a drink, folks.
Oh, I'm sorry. I missed a question about a call-in show. Let me see if I can retrieve that. I did do a call-in show. Well, kind of a call-in show. I did like an open mic one time. Let me see. If someone can just tag me with a repeat of the question about a call-in show, because I missed it and I'm scrolling up and I'm not seeing it. So, yeah, just retag me and I will try to answer that. But I think without much further ado, unless you have anything, Jackson, I think we should get into it. Jackson.
You have very interesting characters who come on your channel occasionally, like a flat earther who believed he could telepathically communicate with fish. So
true.
Can't imagine what sort of people you'd get in a call-in show.
Yeah, that would be interesting. Hawkskull says, AIG are a satchel of syphilitic salamis. Ooh, I like it. I'll take a drink for that. Yeah, keep those coming. Those are really good. Sometimes they're like really deep dive, like deep cut literary references, and I get them wrong about 60% of the time. All right, here we go.
A billion-year-old, what they've decided. I don't believe it's that old. I believe it's probably...
Oh, by the way, we were talking about kinds becoming other kinds, and no, we didn't get a definition of kinds.
Well, because
bacteria that live no longer.
Sorry.
I think we mentioned this in the last show, but we are more closely related to pine trees than some species of bacteria are to each other.
This is true, yeah.
So...
yeah, bacteria are apparently a kind that has more diversity than, most of eukarya. So
yeah,
it's
just a thing that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Longer than 6,020 years. I think today is it 6,020? What year? 16? Yeah, 6,020 years ago.
Oh, okay. So Joe Smith asked. Let's see. Dapper, could you be a religiously neutral guest mod on the Atheist Experience? Raise your profile answering science questions in chat. Just an idea. So I did consider that, but then as I was considering that, they ghosted a Christian friend of mine after telling her that they were not concerned if their, the guests they were bringing on were religious. And then she said, in the spirit of full disclosure, I am a Christian, and then they just ghosted her completely. So I'm currently unhappy with the Atheist Experience as a result of that, because I think it's okay to not be to basically say we only want atheists, right? Or we don't want theists. But what's not okay is to say that it's okay for you to be a theist and come on, and that's fine. But then when actually presented with, well, I am a theist, can I still come on? That not only do you not say no, you just ghost the person. That's kind of crappy. And so yeah, unless that situation has changed, I'm not sure if I can comfortably go back on, or not back, go on the Atheist Experience. I've never actually been on the Atheist Experience. Unless, like, I don't know, maybe I was like super drunk one time and I called in.
They offered, like, all of us, you know who I'm referring to, like, to come on their show at the same time, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah. It's not a secret. All of
us got the same little email.
It's not a secret. It's Maddie from Science Side Up. We talked about it on this channel live with her. Yeah, they ghosted her, and I'm not comfortable with that. Like, that's not really okay by me. So, I don't know. Maybe they'll turn that around.
Oh, absolutely.
But here we go. Let's get a little bit more in.
Give or take a couple of years. I really do think I used to feel like, we can tolerate the old Earth creationist position. And I figured it doesn't matter that much. And I even thought, 10,000 years or maybe, 50. I don't know. I used to be loose about it. I did believe.
Man, can you imagine 10,000 years? Whoa. Okay, guys. When you're comparing 6,000, 10,000, and 4.5 billion. 6 and 10,000 is the same number. But just like it's the same thing. So
Yeah,
that's
that margin of error is pretty darn tiny.
yeah, that's ridiculous. Like, oh man, can you believe 10,000? That's I can't say it's literally nothing, but it's so close to literally nothing that it might as well be. Carrie Bronson for $5 says, wait, if bacteria are a kind, Noah only had 2 on the Ark. That solves the problem of disease spreading in such tight quarters, right? I mean, yeah, it could actually. That's not a terrible idea.
So, to your point on that, Dapper, the book I'm reading currently, well, one of them is Parasite Rex by Carl Zimmer, and it's makes you really think about how many nematodes and flukes and tapeworms, and ticks and all these sorts of things that exist. And if they were on the Ark, there's not like one family of tapeworms. There are lots and lots and lots of families of tapeworms.
Look,
so if the family level is the kind, which animals were hosting the tapeworms on the Ark?
who was hosting malaria? Who was hosting
exactly.
syphilis? Which one
Right.
of Noah's family had gonorrhea? Like these are the thing. No creationists ever go into it, but these are legitimate questions. Did gonorrhea and syphilis and malaria all just evolve after the flood? I mean, it seems unlikely, but I mean, is that what you're going to go with? Also, we have a few super chats. Let's see. We have one from Vandali 1998 for $5. AIG are a bunch of sausage links, but at least they aren't Kenny Hovind. Dapper 2022, nicest thing Dapper ever said about AIG last Saturday. And also, you know what? I'm going to say it counts as an AIG or a bunch of dicks, so we're going to drink for it. Also, $5 for Ghostly Enigma. So the ponies from My Little Pony, I think we're getting drunk when drinking with Applejack. Well, okay, so here's a fun thing about Applejack. It's not only the name of a pony, it's also the name of a traditional liquor that is made in significant parts of North America, or at least traditionally was, where what you do is you have your apple cider, which again traditionally has alcohol because it's fermented, and you put it in a barrel and you leave it outside during the relatively harsh northeast winters of the United States. And so what happens is the nucleation sites for crystal formation on the ice are on the outside of the barrel, but the water freezes long before any alcohol freezes. So what ends up happening is a lot of the water starts to form ice crystals at the outside, pushing the inside to have a higher and higher level of alcohol. And then you break that open and you take a drink. Here's the problem with that. There's no way to get the methanol out or any of the rather noxious, various other aromatic compounds. So Applejack it's not very palatable. It's very low labor and doesn't require a still. So it was very popular. You can then go on to actually boil off the methanol and other rather unpleasant aromatics if you then take it inside and give it a little boil. But yeah, although you can't actually boil the water. You have to just get it to right above the boiling point for methanol, which is, by the way, conveniently lower than the boiling point for ethanol, which is the whole thing. Don't try it at home, kids. You might go blind. Dr. Osiris sends a money-eyed smiley face super sticker for 99 cents. Katlotnish. That's for Dr. Osiris because he's studying Klingon, so I can say thank you in Klingon. All right. Well, let's get back to this. And Jackson, you ready?
I was born ready.
I don't believe you.
Well, I didn't ask for your opinion.
I'm pretty sure if I found like 5-minute-old Jackson, I was like, Jackson, you want to go on Jackson with Jackson? You would just cry at me.
You would say, do it. I am prepared.
Nope, I think you were still probably covered in amniotic fluid and crying. Just saying.
Well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Well, I mean, I've encountered some extremely young humans, and that's a pretty universal thing so far as I can tell, but yes, technically it is just my opinion. Here we go. Oh, wait. For $20, Ericamian? I'm not really sure. Let me check. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Duolingo hasn't yet given the vocabulary word I'm looking for, so I'm sort of winging it. I'm also not sure about the grammar or corporations or English. Oh, okay. So, hold on. Maybe I'm misremembering Nach. So I might be. Yeah. Oh, okay. There you go. Yeah. The grammar's a little off. So you probably want to say Inshep Nach or AIG or At It. That's probably pretty good. But anyway, since there was a very strong attempt, basically you said AIG is a bag of animals, which is probably not what you wanted. Inshep, by the way, is the Klingon word for penis, and it is an anagram of penis once we ignore the apostrophe. So take a drink, everybody.
Boom.
It also sounds suspiciously like Yinship, which is oxygen and literally means life gas, because it's the gas that you need to stay alive. And for $5, Vandalian 1998 says, but who's to say 5-minute-old Jackson wasn't smarter than AIG? Oh, he absolutely was. He just wasn't ready to go on Jackson with Jackson. I have no doubt that 5-minute-old Jackson was smarter than AIG. You have to have negative intelligence to be as dumb as AIG. Hey, dog. Shh.
Yeah, we're setting the bar pretty low.
Sorry, the dog is hearing a dove because the mourning doves are out in full force, as are the hummingbirds and the whiptail lizards and the chuckwawas, because, yeah, we're gonna hit like 35 centigrade soon, so, you know, hooray.
I believe 6,000
Everybody be
years
out.
always, but I thought it's not so important. But I have seen the fruit of old Earth creation positions. And there's no science that says you got to go there. It's a concession that we make to the evolutionist community that's not necessary.
I mean, except for sedimentology, radiometric dating, distant starlight, you know, like, it... I'm just gonna drink for it. There's no science that says you have to go for an old Earth. Yeah, it kind of is, though. It's basically all of it that could indicate. Oh, okay, so Arachamian is saying that he was using Hatgebach, which is animals for both animal and meat, which is true. You refer to meat that's been being served as food as Hatgebach. Yeah, in this case, you just want to go with Inshep, which is just the literal word. Because otherwise, like, I don't know that Klingon has the slang for meat that goes along with, you know, dick, so you want to go with Inshep. It's apostrophe capital I and capital S-E-P, Inshep. Here we go.
And the spiritual fruit is dark in
Ooh.
churches. I've seen it, and I don't like it.
Reasons to believe he's coming for you. My goodness, he's calling out reasons to believe.
At the end of the day, that is AIG's bigger target. I mean, you know, they don't like the atheists, but
It's true.
at the same time, they really don't like the Christians who disagree with them.
Yeah, actually, I think for them
It's
that's
supposed to be a unified front,
right.
You know,
For AIG, dissenting Christians are the bigger target, and I think here's the reason, right? Young Earth creationism is dying. It's really not spreading. It is losing adherents faster than it can convert anyone, because it can barely convert anyone. And we're going to talk about how it does convert people in a second. And it's also losing members faster than its own members can reproduce and then teach their children to be Young Earth creationists. And the way that Young Earth creationism gets new recruits is, first, it gets people to convert to a relatively conservative form of Christianity, like American evangelical Christianity. And when I say conservative, I don't really mean something that would have been recognizable in
on
like
the political side.
like well, on the political sense, but also Dream for Godzilla. I also mean theologically, but in like a very restricted to like the last 200 years of like Protestant Christian theology. Actually, this doesn't go back all that far in terms of Christian history, but whatever. And then those people are then convinced that this is the more authentic interpretation of the Bible, and then they decide that if that's the case, well, they better rearrange how they see science. And we see that with a whole bunch of people. We see it with Dr. Sanford, who is the big genetic entropy guy. We see it with Sal Cordova, who is, you know, a friend of the channel and a great guy all around. But if you listen to him talk about how he became a Young Earth creationist, that's the order of events. It's never that someone takes a look at the evidence, decides that, oh yeah, the Earth is young, and life probably didn't evolve, and then just happens to stumble into Christianity later. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people...
Convenient, don't you think?
Right. Many people will accept evolution without rejecting Christianity, or reject Christianity without first accepting evolution and only then go and domesticate it and eventually accept evolution. So, yeah, that's one of the problems is, no one is convinced by young Earth creationism unless they're already a Christian of a certain stripe. And here we go.
It scares me. It's like people taking poison. We don't need to go there because scientists say the Earth's billions of years old. We would have to go there if science said so. But it doesn't. Assumptions piled upon assumptions piled upon assumptions, and inferences are used to establish. That's a whole nother presentation.
All right, I'm going to drink for assumptions, and then we're going to talk about it, because I'm also going to... I actually already talked about it on Sunday, and you're going to hear me talking about it on Thursday. So here's a quick drink. Okay, so let's say you're in high school physics class, and you want to do a problem that says, okay, you have a basketball on top of a 3-meter tower, and you're going to just tip it off, so it just falls, and you don't have to worry about any horizontal velocity, right? And we're going to just pretend there's no air resistance, because over the course of 3 meters, it's not going to be very significant. How long is it going to take to hit the ground? Well, you need to use the 9.8 meters per second squared acceleration due to gravity on Earth. But here's the thing. Are you assuming that gravity? Well, yes, but why? And the answer is because other people have already measured it repeatedly. And every time you do the experiment and you get the predicted number, not only did you assume something that was already demonstrated, but you getting the right answer further demonstrates the validity of the assumption. So when science uses assumptions, other than the most basic ones like, yeah, math works, and the universe doesn't just change its rules willy-nilly at the drop of a hat. So basically, the consistency of natural law and the usefulness of math are the basic assumptions of science. Okay, those seem pretty reasonable to me. Beyond that, the assumptions that you actually use in science are the conclusions of previous science. And when you continue to get consistent results time after time using those assumptions, that means that every time you get that result, it's further evidence in favor of the quote-unquote assumption. So in one way, yeah, it is true. All of this is built on assumption. But the thing is, every one of those assumptions was only assumed after it was very conclusively demonstrated to be the case, and then future consistent results then go on to further confirm our confidence in those assumptions. So when you just say assumption built on assumption and leave it on like that, like you're, assuming that the store is just gonna be open at 12 because, I don't know, you're like drunk or something and you really want tacos. Yeah, that's not the same kind of assumption. And believe me, I speak from experience. Sometimes the store is closed. Don't get tacos. And it's terrible. Okay. Basically, a large portion of this show is me just trying to break Jackson and just get him to laugh most of the time. I have a pretty good track
Very
record.
easy, though.
Well, yeah, but that's why the thing is, it's fun, though, because you have a very infectious laugh, Jackson.
I laughed at your rules for the past, 3 shows.
I know, I love it.
It was the same rule.
I know, but it's usually
It
been a month.
wasn't like you added rules. I mean,
I did not.
it was the same rule.
All right, here we go.
But the radiometric dating fallacies, and I'm not going to go into that now.
Womp, womp, womp.
Just drink, because...
Womp, womp, womp.
No, we don't, and you should go into it, because there are none, but okay.
Okay, look, they look just like modern species. They can evolve. They can change their DNA really fast. They're very good at their DNA. Their genetics is very, very simple compared to ours. But I wanted to show a little video.
Oh dear.
I wonder if I can do that, Wes, because you're my friend.
What is happening?
If you'll look in a yellow folder called Vids, this is actually a little clip of
If you ever find one of those on your parents' computer, you probably shouldn't open it.
Yeah, probably true. Selena Felicity White can't stand tacos? I mean, are you like a burrito person?
What does that even mean? You can't stand tacos.
I mean, I assume it means that Selena doesn't like tacos, which
How does that even...
I don't know.
What
It
is even
seems
happening here?
incomprehensible, but I don't know.
Doesn't seem real.
Silver Heartless says,
Not convinced.
assumptions are important. We assume language works because we assume other people have minds. Well, kind of. So if you can actually come up with a theory of language that does not require a theory of mind. So, for instance, you could say that I use language to elicit desired behaviors from other humans without assuming that they have a mind. And if it works, then great. Language works. That's not the normal assumption we use with language. Usually we're talking about like communication and imparting our ideas to other people. But you don't actually have to assume that those people have a mind. You can just say you want to elicit the desired response, and you're using language as a tool to do that, in which case, yeah, mind or no, it still works. So often we make that assumption, but it's actually not vital. Goop23 says that next time we should add a rule to see, just to see if you laugh. I might. Maybe. Every time Jackson laughs, we have to drink. I would die.
Rule to see if Jackson laughs?
Yeah, there you go.
Oh boy. Yeah, probably not the... Wait, also, that's probably not a great idea. You
No.
might die.
I might.
My internet's being horrible right now, so...
Alright, well, we'll hit play, and hopefully this video file that comes up doesn't get my channel taken down.
Renowned researcher in genetics of bacteria. This guy is at the Helsinki University of Technology or something, and you might have seen this little film clip. If you look under vids, shine it up there on the screen for me.
Can I guess what this is? Can I make a prediction?
Please do.
I bet this is going to be that video where it's like a table that basically is an agar dish, agar, however you pronounce it, and you just watch them expand into each new area.
Okay.
Making that prediction right now. Because you've seen that video, yeah?
I have. I mean, we talked about it before.
Yeah. I think you're right, yeah.
And I'll try and guide you like I was talking about.
Oh, goodness.
Let's see.
We're just straight up getting to see the hard drive.
Wait, it's this guy. M. Lesiola, bacteria mutation enzymes. Click on that, and then put it on pause.
Hold on, let's see if there's anything that shouldn't be in here. Stan Miller is a sleeping like web videos. DVDs expelled. Homo Naledi face. Japan earthquake. This is nothing in here actually stands out, and I'm a little disappointed. I wanted to see like some kind of weird tentacle thing just lurking on the hard drive here, but yeah.
Oh my god.
Come on, you know that would be hilarious.
That would... Yeah, didn't Nephilim Free do that one time?
He did. He had his escort service tab just open
on
Chrome.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And then he deleted that video, but yeah, the internet never forgets,
too
guys. Yup. To this day, he maintains his innocence. It's like, that was just photoshopped. It was a video, dude. All right, here we go.
You put up here, yeah. Oh god. Okay.
Oh, he was married at the time, by the way. Yeah.
So, yeah, I remember that too. Yeah, good lord.
Yeah, to his disabled former roommate who became his wife. Totally not for the checks.
So I can tell people what we're looking at once you get it up. It's a part of another well-known, I forget which movie it is, but it's a creation science movie. But it's an interview with this fellow who's an expert on bacteria. Yeah. And he talks about how, we're on the cutting edge of the research in how bacteria genes work, and we can genetically engineer them to do this and that and that. But you know what? They never change into anything but bacteria.
Okay. Hold on a second.
You go. I'll drink.
If he said we have found that these bacteria change into something that is not a bacterium, he would become a world-famous researcher.
Who had, disconfirmed large swaths of evolution, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the thing is, once a clade originates, descendants of that clade must always remain in that clade, because that's what a clade is, right? It's a common ancestor and all of its descendants taken together. That's literally what a clade is. There's no way to escape from that. So, for instance, your grandfather will always be the ancestor of any of your descendants. No matter how much they change, no matter how little of his DNA they may or may not have. That will always be their ancestor. Because that's what an ancestor is. It's someone who's farther up in your family tree. Clades are basically just saying all this group of organisms has a family tree, and this group of organisms doesn't exclude anybody who has a similar family tree that's close enough to our definition to count. So, yeah, bacteria is a clade. You can't escape it by evolving. That's not how it works. So, I'm going to take a drink for it both being true and being unbelievably dumb. Because things can be both. Also, by the way, I'm seeing
That is true.
like 30 people haven't hit like. Shame. For shame.
For shame.
All right, here we go.
And he said, I was angry when my research began to show me over and over and over again that bacteria can't change into anything else.
That's a story that didn't happen.
And it
Take a
angered
drink.
me that I just bought the evolution thing. And he's a thinking person. This is actually an actor.
Oh, he's a thinking person. Also false, but not
you
quite
bought-
good enough.
You bought what evolution thing? You are a trained bacteriologist who came to believe by some means that evolution involves organisms becoming other than descendants of their ancestors.
Yeah.
Somehow. You
Somehow.
bought that from someone at some point, somehow. Okay.
I'm actually going to press...
I'll take that never happened.
Yeah, well, that's why I said it never happened and I took a drink for it. It's also why I just poured my second bottle of this cider into my glass. It's a doozy, guys. Here we go. Hey, I have 3 more on standby in the refrigerator, so I'm not running out anytime soon.
You'll probably need them. You'll probably need them at this
almost
rate.
certainly.
Portraying
bonkers.
Charles Darwin.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have good sound for this, Wes? Okay, you're a treasure. He's a peach. You need to give him a raise or something.
He's probably killing the cameraman right now.
Also, that was a
Dude's
bad
like,
joke.
we did not agree.
That was a joke that didn't land just there.
Oh, I'm sorry. The cameraman's like, we did not agree to have all these video files.
Yeah. This is my personal hard drive. I would prefer that it not be on screen. Thanks, Dr. Jackson. That's the vibe I'm getting.
He's like, can we please stop looking through my files?
You know what? That would actually be the thing if he was like, say, like a Navy guy just about to go on deployment. You don't get easy internet access. You got to download everything just to keep it. Anyway.
Okay,
It'd be
go
also
ahead and-
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say it'd also be really bad if you were like at Hovind and we were looking through his hard drive. Anyways.
That's more of a Steve the Tech Guy thing.
Oh, you're right. My bad. Allegedly.
Technically, yes, it was alleged. But yeah, it's been alleged by a fair few people. Let's just leave it at that for now.
play this and listen to what Dr. Laciola says.
Okay. What is happening right now?
I'll want you to pause it because they've only briefly show his credentials, and I want you to stop it on the credentials so everyone can read them.
Oh, here we go.
Isn't this the biography of Charles Darwin that we're looking at? Like the biopic that they did for a documentary?
Oh, that could be it. I don't know.
Okay, whatever's happening, I do not believe that this is the modern bacteriologist that we were just talking about. My goodness.
Do I have to turn my mic
back
off or
in the
something?
1800s.
Do I have to put this mic up to a little speaker over there? That would. I actually saw Lynn
What
Margulis
is
do
happening?
that one time. She's a
I don't
well-known
know.
evolutionist, and I got that trick from her. Actually, you know, she was pretty nice to me. She was a little afraid of me when she found out I was a creationist, but you know,
That's a story that didn't happen. Lynn Margulis was not
I mean-
afraid of you, Dr. Charles Jackson.
And this is a woman who took on the actual scientific community and won.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
don't think she's afraid of anything.
She did the actual thing creationists always think they're going to do, except she actually did it. Look, this was the person, Lynn Margulis basically invented the idea of endosymbiosis as the origin of things like mitochondria and chloroplasts. And at the time, basically everyone was like, that's crazy. And then she won. She demonstrated her case beyond any reasonable doubt, and that's now just the standard explanation as to how those organelles formed. endosymbiosis, which basically means one cell encapsulates another, which is normally how cells eat each other, but instead of actually just digesting the cell, they just kept it around and it became a symbiote. And then it became so integrated that essentially it's just a part of the host organism now. She invented that idea.
She fought for that for decades, and it is now widely revered. Like Barbara McClintock is another one who came up with the idea of transposons, and was also laughed at for years until again demonstrated beyond all reasonable doubt that transposons are a thing. Endosymbiosis is a thing,
and now these are just standard parts of the model.
Why don't we see creationists doing this, Dapper? I'm confused.
Oh, it's because they can't, because they're not right.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
yeah, that's the big difference. Creationists always go on like, oh, plate tectonics, that was laughed off for decades. Like, yeah, but then they did the work. So you got to do the work, guys.
You guys have whole journals, dozens of books, and no one believes you still. So,
well, when your entire journal is run by Andrew Snelling, the man who puts his students in front of the cracks in rocks that he says don't exist in pictures, you can see why I am hesitant to accept those kinds of journals as actually peer-reviewed.
I mean, I was just making a point about how much stuff they put out there.
Oh, well, yeah.
They put out loads of material, and still no one believes them, so...
Yeah, it's because the material...
Seems like the issue is elsewhere.
The thing is, the material is more professionally written than Kent Hovind's PhD, but it's not more convincing.
Exactly.
Which, by the way, there's a 6-part series on this channel where I read through the entire Kent Hovind thesis. It was painful.
Thesis is putting it very nicely.
Oh, yeah, it was a rough draft of a book that included almost no citations, almost all of them to the Bible. And one thing that was supposed to be a citation to the Bible just said literally, in all caps, KJV : get book title. Yep, here we go.
Amazing.
Lynn Margulis, before her death, I think she is dead now.
I cannot confirm. If someone else can confirm, let me know.
I think you're right.
I'm pretty sure she was ostracized by the evolutionist community because she doesn't believe natural selection and mutation combined to. She believes in acquired.
Take a drink. That is a blatant lie.
I mean, yeah, she was. Sorry, play that back for me, please.
Okay.
Before her death,
digest that
I think
one more
she
time.
is dead now. She was ostracized by the evolutionist community because she doesn't believe natural selection and mutation combined to. She believes in acquired.
So, is he going to say acquired characteristics?
Yeah.
That's
genomes
also not
is how evolution works.
Acquired genomes.
Okay. He's kind of getting two ideas sort of mixed up here. I mean, first of all, outright lie. Lynn Margulis has written about natural selection and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's just a flat lie. But what he's kind of getting confused is Margulis and some of her co-authors on the whole endosymbiosis thing. They may have taken it a little bit far in some respects, which kind of happens when you have a favorite theory. Kind of apply it to everything.
Yeah, she overstepped a bit.
Yeah, she proposed these ideas endosymbiosis was correct. Even now we have tertiary and quaternary endosymbiosis. And there were some things like serial endosymbiosis that she proposed where essentially all the organelles in the cell were different symbiotic events, which doesn't seem to be the case. But also, she wrote her own evolution textbook at one point where she effectively argued that the principal driver of speciation was endosymbiosis,
which is not true.
That's just wrong. Yeah, that's just wrong.
But she never denied natural selection and mutation as factors in evolution.
No. At no point was that ever a thing she denied. So
yeah,
bonkers.
That's why I say that's just a flat out lie. I don't believe that Charles Jackson. There's two options. Either he doesn't know enough about Lynn Margulis to say, in which case he's just pretending to, which is a lie. Or he does know enough and he knows that this isn't true, in which case he's lying. So yeah,
Either
Lynn
way,
Margulis,
not a good look.
right. Lynn Margulis absolutely got things wrong. She wasn't a Lamarckian, like he just implied. And she also did not deny natural selection and mutation. All right, here we go.
Even the people who are like the so-called neo-Lamarckians, which I hate that term, which is usually like applied to the people who do epigenetic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Epigenetics is accepted nowadays because, again, there is overwhelming, undeniable evidence that epigenetics happens.
Yeah, it's
where,
almost
where
like
the creationists be at.
It's almost like you're allowed to challenge the paradigm, but you actually have to do the work, and also you have to be right. That's what I'd call an inconvenient truth. Al Gore joke. Here we go.
But anyway, I learned that trick by watching her put her microphone down to her PC.
What trick?
So putting was it like the microphone to the speaker to amplify the sound.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Lynn Margulis.
Oh my goodness.
She asked, "Are there any millionaires in the audience?" Because NASA had cut her funding for her research because she was going against Niles Eldridge and Stephen Jay Gould and Darwin.
No, that's
take
emphatically not what happened. That is emphatically not what happened. In fact, okay, in fairness, Margulis wasn't actually the first person to propose endosymbiosis. There was a Russian dude in like the 1920s, if I remember correctly, or something like that, who had proposed that endosymbiosis was a thing, but he didn't. But much like Alfred Wegener, he didn't have the data to back it up. Doesn't matter that he was right; he didn't have the data.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
it wasn't
Galileo
until the
had
data
the same
came
thing.
along.
Galileo didn't have the data to back him up, so no one believed him, and rightfully so.
It doesn't matter if you're right. If you can't demonstrate that you're right, that is effectively the same as being wrong.
Yep.
So, okay, whatever.
But yeah, look, there was some ridicule and whatnot, but you want to know the real reason that NASA tends to cut budgets? Well, either your research isn't producing results, which hers was, or NASA's budget got slashed. You know what
Which
happened?
also happens.
You know what happened a whole lot over the course of like the second, like basically after like the 70s in the United States of America? After basically the United States said, we're going to stop the Apollo program, yeah, NASA's budget was repeatedly slashed. Every research project from NASA was either cut completely or had its budget cut. Because once the space race was quote-unquote won, the U.S. government was more interested in, killing people in the Middle East and Southeast Asia, which they're still more interested in.
Yeah.
Look, it's going to be a rare event that I say nice things about the federal government of the United States. So.
Oh no, absolutely deserved. So yeah.
Although I did get a call from the CDC today, which is one of the best parts of the United States federal government, which for those of you who may not be from the United States, is a Center for Disease Control and is the primary disease research, epidemiology, and stuff at the federal level in the United States. So it's that organization that does a lot of that stuff. They come up a lot in zombie movies. They always have something to say about the zombie plague right before everything completely collapses. Anyway.
So they wouldn't let her play in any reindeer games anymore.
Bad joke. Take a drink.
So she and I talked at a reception for her, actually for quite
also,
a while.
Not that she couldn't do research. She was probably still in labs pumping out other research, just not on that specific project. Freaking Barbara McClintock, even though people didn't believe her about transposons, she was still doing lots of research on corn. It didn't stop just because people didn't believe this one thing.
Right?
So
she was still producing work with results. So, yeah.
Yeah.
At least we had in common that we were ostracized from the majority of the scientific community.
No, you did not. Nope, that's not how that works. She was...
Go ahead. I'll take a drink first, because that was real. This episode, it's going to get me, guys. I can tell. Tomorrow's going to be a really rough morning. And, oh my goodness, I have to go to the hospital tomorrow. Ugh.
in some ways, he could also compare himself to Darwin, be like, a large portion of the scientific community didn't believe Darwin when he first proposed natural selection. I'm just like Charles Darwin.
It's just as good a comparison. Here's the thing, though.
It really is, yeah.
Lynn Margulis was never excluded from the scientific community, right? Her
No.
ideas were somewhat ridiculed at first, and then slowly acceptance grew. Here's the thing about young Earth creationism. It is on the same level as Flat Earth in terms of plausibility. And no creationist has ever done anything that actually raises the plausibility of young Earth creationism above that level. There's two differences between young Earth creationism and Flat Earth. One is young Earth creationism is much better funded and popular, which goes together, right? The other one is we haven't known it's wrong for as long. That's it. When it actually comes to the data, the science, the actual work of people doing science, they're indistinguishable in terms of plausibility. And look, I have some young Earth creationist friends, including ones who do stuff here on YouTube, who might come by. And I don't mean to be mean, but you have to recognize that is where the scientific community is. Flat Earth and young Earth creationism are basically equiprobable in terms of truth value, which is to say, as close to zero as you can get without just being a mathematically known to be false statement, like 2 + 2 = 18. Yeah, okay, we have 100% surety that that's not true. But short of that, it's hard to find an idea that is less likely to be true than young Earth creationism. All right, here we go.
She at least. And she told me stories about her and Niles Eldridge and years ago having arguments and fighting about them. I found her a very pleasant person. Many evolutionists are intelligent and pleasant.
Aww.
Just deceived.
Cool.
First, just deceived. Okay, so first, we'll take a drink. Say cheers, Dr. Charles Jackson, for saying that we're often pleasant individuals. Thank you.
Sure.
But deceived by whom? Their professors? Well, their professors believe what they're saying. But that's the thing, yeah. It ultimately comes down to Satan. So, by saying that evolutionists are deceived, Dr. Charles Jackson is essentially implying that evolution is a satanic conspiracy. Which then means that people who are promulgating it have to be influenced by Satan. Which basically means your school's biology department is demon-possessed, or at least demonically oppressed, if we want to get into fancy nuances that I know from horror movies and nothing else, because I don't spend a whole lot of time researching actual real-world demonology, so what do I know? But I really do like horror movies, so...
Sounds like a contradiction in terms, but I'll let it slide.
Rainy Thorsday says a good amount of the time Flat Earthers and YECs are the same people. So Flat Earthers are almost always YECs, but the reverse is not true. So of the population of YECs, a very small percentage of them are Flat Earthers. But of the Flat Earthers, a huge proportion of them are more or less young Earth creationists.
And some of them, I think, actually know better. And they still believe it and teach it anyway.
Talk about projection. My goodness. Maybe we should just add a drink trigger for absurd amounts of projection, because my goodness. Wow. All right. But technically it's not a drink trigger, so we'll let it go.
Oh, yes, Russ, are you ready? Okay, brother.
Oh, finally.
But if natural selection has limits or boundaries, what provides the additional new genetic information that Darwin's theory requires?
Mutations.
How about that was not what natural selection was intended to do?
Right?
So, and he chapter 2 explicitly says this in Origin of Species?
Have you read the book? The answer, of course, is
the
no.
second chapter is on variations.
Mm-hmm.
So, in chapter 3 is natural select. I think chapter 3, and so it's almost as if he doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Lord.
But yeah, also the answer is mutation. Mutation is what adds the information, guys.
Yep.
Yes. Most believe that random genetic mistakes called mutations are responsible.
Yeah. Take a drink. That's true. Most do believe that for good reason.
Information science.
And drink for
As far
Godzilla.
as we know, information has always an intelligent source behind that.
Okay, go. Drink again for Godzilla. And then we're going to talk about intelligent sources.
Just that's what we call in the business just wrong. Because if you take, we even explained this in depth in a conversation we had on it's now on both of our channels. Regarding the certain yeast experiment, Bosdag et al. 2021. No, the thing is, we have no control over the mutations. We can control what the environment is, what the circumstances are that favor particular sets of variations, but we have literally zero control over the mutations. The most you can do is you can introduce like a mutagen, but that just means there are more of these mutations. The very best you could do is literally design a sequence, insert that into an organism. Short of that, there's nothing you can do with the genome.
My goodness, and again, someone really hates me.
Short of that, there's nothing like intelligence can do.
I guess that's Godzilla. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about information, right? So, in terms of information, we have a few different things, and creationists like to equivocate, right? They like to pretend that information is like how much meaning you, as a human, can get out of something, right? Like, is there more information in a copy of The Lord of the Rings than in a Chick tract? Yeah, probably. You're probably going to get more meaning dumped into your brain by reading the entire tome of The Lord of the Rings than reading like Big Daddy, which is the Chick tract that Kent Hovind co-wrote. Or I'm sorry, he consulted on. He objects to having it claimed that he wrote it, so we'll be fair. He consulted. So
kind of funny.
Yeah.
He's written worse.
Well, that's true. But here's the thing, right? In terms of science and information theory, that's meaningless because we can't quantify that, really. Right? Like, there's no unit you can use for how much meaning a human grasps out of a thing. Because for one thing, that's subjective, right? So let's say I take my copy of Lord of the Rings in English and I give it to a monolingual Swahili speaker. That guy's going to get nothing out of it. That book, as far as he's concerned, has no meaning whatsoever. The fact that I find that it has meaning, irrelevant to him. But here's something. Does it have some kind of objective amount of information that we could measure regardless of what language someone speaks? And the answer is yes. Because you can condense a book, like Lord of the Rings, into a signal, where you have these symbols, right? So every character and space and every punctuation mark is its own kind of signal. It's its own character that the signal can send across. And then you measure how likely it is that you can predict what the next character is. And when you combine all of this with this total number of characters in the signal, you can actually come up with what's called Shannon information, which is a measure of basically predictability, and also it's useful in terms of how tightly you can compress something and things like this, right? Like, Shannon information is very useful when you're doing things like JPEG compression. That's why JPEGs can store very, very complicated images with relatively small amounts of space. And say other file formats like .tiff, TIFF, which are almost completely uncompressed, the same image takes up a whole lot more space on your hard drive because they're not using any of this information theory to compress anything. And so in terms of using Shannon information, which is, as far as I can tell, the only scientifically applicable definition for information, mutations do in fact increase the information content, or at least they can. So deletion events might decrease, but duplications increase the information in a particular genome. And if you're looking at like the level of a species, then any mutation increases the information content of the species wide genome because you have a new variant to account for. So information doesn't have to come from mind. In fact, in terms of Shannon information, one of the most high information kinds of signals you can get is literal random noise, because you cannot predict the value of the next part of the signal based on previous parts, because it's completely random. Complete randomness is essentially incompressible. So, yeah. In fact, minds do not have to come up with information in the sense of Shannon information. So, let's continue on, and then pretty soon we are going to take a intermission. When we get back, I'll repeat the fact that there's a Patreon drive, and then we'll continue on. So here we go.
So when we look at biology, we are asking automatically the question, where does the information come from? Enzymes are information and molecules. They are actually the tools.
Enzymes aren't information. They are molecules. That's dumb. Enzymes just are what they are. They are created based on the information in the genome, which is, in some ways, it's also just a molecule, right? But also you can conceive of it as a set of symbols that tell something else, a signal receiver, the ribosome, how to make the protein that is the enzyme.
This is an example of what you're talking about with information, because creationists love just throwing that term around, because they will never define it. They will go out of their way to avoid defining the term information. Genes have information, and enzymes are information, apparently.
Yes.
Somehow.
And Silver Harlow points out that JPEG is very different from the kind of pure Shannon information compression you could get from just, say, zipping a .tiff file. That's true. JPEG takes advantage of similarities in how humans interpret color. Yes, that is very true. The reason so what I did was sort of what you call like a lie for children, which is when you tell kids something that's approximately true, even though you know that technically
pedagogical
it's wrong.
lie?
Right, a pedagogical lie. So technically, no, JPEG does not just use Shannon information compression like doing a .zip compression of a TIFF file. However, most people also don't know how compressing .tiff files in a zip folder works. So I'm trying to go with
correct,
the most basic version of file compression that people are familiar with. So I accept that, yes, what I said was not entirely accurate. However, I do maintain that I do think that as an example in this context, it was reasonable. But anyway, we're going to go on an intermission. I'm going to polish off what is left of this cider, which is very little, by the way. And we're going to come back. I will repeat that, yeah, we are doing a Patreon drive. And yeah, we're going to have more of this nonsense when we come back. So everybody, please stick with me. Also, I'm seeing, 5 people haven't hit like. So those 5 of you, for shame. All right, welcome back to me and Jackson. Also, I want to say thank you very much to Nope Nope, who just joined the Patreon at the Tetrapod tier with an annual subscription, which again, there's a discount for that. So thank you very much. We now only need $107 in terms of monthly pledges. And like I said, guys, I am doing a Patreon pledge because well, basically, I don't want to have to cut back on how much time I spend on the channel. And so getting to that goal of 400 will make it significantly less likely that I have to do that anytime in the foreseeable future. Because like they say, time is money, but also money is time. You pledging on the Patreon buys more time for me to spend as much time as I am on the channel. So it would be very much appreciated, especially if you like this content, because quite frankly, you wouldn't have had this much of it if it weren't for the current patrons and channel members. And without future ones, I will unfortunately at some point have to cut back. And that's not in the immediate future, but it's this year, basically, if I don't get that up there a little bit. And so I would prefer not to have to do that. So anything that you can, and of course, if you can't afford it, then please don't. But I just poured myself a new, fresh cider into a nice chilled beer mug that I pulled out of the freezer just for this. So, Jackson, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, well then let's do it. I hit the wrong thing. Here we go.
Nature uses to modify things. So it's totally inconceivable that an informational molecule could be created by random mechanisms.
Okay, no, because random mechanisms will create molecules. Okay, so here's the thing, right? There have been experiments in which people have just tossed literally random nucleotides at bacteria to see if they can get them to produce proteins. The answer is yes. And of those proteins, a non-zero fraction actually had function. So, I mean, that's just a lie.
Yeah.
We'll just take a drink for it.
They replaced the promoter region for, I think it was the lacoperon, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And
In E.
some of
coli,
them
right?
just yeah, I believe you're right. And some of them just
Function.
started working.
Yeah.
They didn't produce, at the same efficiency per se, but they still did it. So you are just flat wrong.
So-
Sorry, my guy.
I'm going to explain real quick what the lac-operon is. So, first, an operon is a thing in bacteria, where a set of associated genes that all have to do with the same basic function, in this case, lactose digestion, are all bunched together in the genome, and they have a single promoter. So, in the presence of lactose, this promoter activates, and all of these genes involved in lactose metabolism activate, and all the proteins start being produced. Great. Eukaryotes, like humans and dinosaurs, we have a much more complicated system. But for bacteria, because of their extremely small genomes, this is how they do it, because they have to conserve on size of the genome. And so there you go. Now, like I said, operons have a promoter. At the promoter region, the operon doesn't activate. So you couldn't digest lactose in this case. So the lac-operon promoter is about 100 or so base pairs long. And so researchers basically just replaced the lac-operon promoter with literal random noise, right? So you've got 4 to the 100th power in terms of how many combinations there are. And this is actually something I've looked up, right? So we'll just check some math. So 4 to the 100th power. There we go. So that's 1.6 times 10 to the 60th options.
It's a big number.
Yes, it is. Of that, about 1 in 5 actually recovered some promoter functionality. So,
Yeah, also a big number.
yeah, that is a big number. So then, on top of that, more than half of the remaining non-functional operon promoters only required one substitution mutation. So one little thing where you go and you say, okay, this nucleotide is now a different nucleotide base pair.
The reason for that technically was the region of the promoter that the polymerase is binding to is looking for certain little sets, certain sequences of nucleotides, and by pure random chance, you will generate that sequence. I think it was only like 4 or 5. I think it was 5 nucleotide sequence that the polymerase is looking for. So by chance alone, you will generate that. And then the Dapper said only takes one mutation. Yeah, in a number of those cases, generate that sequence.
Yeah. And so yeah, I mean, random noise can generate functional. Actually, in this experiment, some of the results after a couple of mutations. Oh, take a drink. Some of those mutations actually recovered stronger promoter functionality than the original wild type promoter. So
right. So yeah, it got better at doing it than the original.
Random noise followed by a tiny bit of selection can actually increase functionality. So we just know that this is wrong.
It's wrong. It's 6 ways to Sunday.
Exactly. So here we go.
When we introduce randomness, the informational content disappears. The enzymes are degraded. They are non-functional.
Do you want me to pause?
I was just saying, nope.
Oh, okay.
About 40 years ago,
stop it there. Just for look, Professor.
I thought that was good, Jackson, saying that for a second because I didn't listen to the voice. Okay, here we go. Sorry.
Matti Leisola at the he's a biochemist and faculty dean at the Helsinki University of Technology. This is not some guy, working for Answers in Genesis, okay? He's not one of us. He's just saying, look.
Hold on, pause it. It says, what does DSC mean, first of all? Because this says he's the biotechnology and faculty. What does it say? Does it say what it?
I think
faculty,
DSC is Doctor of Science, which is a degree given
so
out
we
by
have
some. All right, go ahead.
Hold on, let me this larger. No, it's. I can't. Anyways, the point is, we're not seeing what his degree is in. Is the point?
Yeah, it's
seeing
Doctor of Science, and so it's.
But in what science? Right? Is he a chemist? Is he a mathematician or what? What is his degree? We're not seeing that, and that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, creationists have a long history of giving either vague or not technically correct credentials to people. So, for instance, so as you guys might know, Gutsa Gibbon, Dr. Dan from Creation Myths, and I are collaborating on a 6-part takedown of a section of the creationist quote-unquote documentary Dismantled. And one of the things they do is they'll put up anyone and just put geneticist after their name. They'll take a marine biologist and be like, it's a geneticist. Why? Well, I guess ocean creatures have DNA.
I found out what he is.
Oh, what is he?
He is just according to the description from his book, Heretic, Unscientist Journey from Darwin to Design, according to the Amazon page, he is just a biotechnologist, which means he does not necessarily know anything about evolution.
So, yeah, he's there to do things like insert antifreeze genes into your tomatoes, keep them from dying in a frost. That's not an evolutionary biologist. That's not nothing, though. I mean, that's really important, complicated technical work, but it's not this field. And here's the thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
Biotechnologist is basically an engineer, and the thing with engineers is that because they design things, they tend to see design everywhere. And so he's basically an engineer seeing complicated things that he would have to spend a lot of work to design if he wanted to do it himself. So he just infers that must be what actually happened. And it's a well-known thing that engineers are much more likely to reject evolution than, say, actual scientists, because they're their entire job is design, which is fair, right? When everything
Sure.
you do all day is just design things, you tend to see design everywhere. It's like artists are always looking at things in terms of like color and composition and lighting and things like this. Okay, but that doesn't mean that, you know, your random walk down the street is particularly artistic or particularly colorful. It's just that's what you're paying attention to. And so that's what engineers tend to pay attention to, is how could
What is that,
design
the-
result in something.
The Salem hypothesis?
I
Is that what it's called?
remember. You would have to.
At any rate, you're
Double check.
right. You're absolutely right. That was the thing I was looking for. Is yeah, this is just an engineer being propped up because he has bio in his job description.
Mhm.
So
And hey, look, I mean,
got nothing.
it sounds like he's got a legitimate doctorate, which is not nothing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's well
I'm
credentialed.
sure he's an expert in this, in
Right.
biotechnology. I'm sure he's an expert in that. That's great. It's whatever.
But ultimately,
he's being interviewed. You know,
ultimately, it's like, look, I have a friend who's a great florist. She's amazing. I mean, I don't buy a lot of flowers, but I bought some of her flowers because they're frankly amazing. I'm not going to ask her anything about medicine or evolutionary biology or anything like that. Not because she's not a wonderful person and an amazing florist, because that's not her field. So, on the other hand, when I want a great opinion about how to use baby's breath, I will absolutely talk to her. And by the way, her answer is, it's overused, don't even bother. But here we go.
Science has shown me. And if you want to just back up a second, because you were saying after 40 years of research, here's what I've seen. Thank you.
About 40 years ago, I first time heard that evolution might not be true, and I reacted very violently. I was furious. I was angry about this kind of proposition.
that's
When I
a
went back-
weird way to react.
Yeah, it really is. Like,
Sounds like you were emotionally attached to this idea, but not like intellectually.
which, I
Oh.
mean, people are, right? But like,
And you can
It's
be
weird.
absolutely emotionally attached. Like, I think it's really cool that organisms evolve in particular ways and stuff. That's
Mhm.
cool. But like, if some aspect of evolution is not true, then I'm just gonna let it go. That's how that happens. I used to think. I used to be. Before I found out it was like populated by a bunch of freaking weirdos. Like, okay, maybe there's some justification to like evolutionary psychology. They seem to have a lot of these hypotheses to explain different human behaviors. And then I kind of did some background research into it and was like, oh no,
yeah, it's
No.
mostly just post hoc rationalizations.
yeah. And so I gave it up.
Yeah.
I was like, well, this doesn't seem to be supported. So
Mhm.
I'm despite the fact that at least some of our behaviors likely have a genetic basis.
I mean, some of them
Doesn't
have
make
to.
evolutionary right, exactly. And that still doesn't make evolutionary psychology true. Sorry.
Yep, at least
It
not
doesn't.
not in its current incarnation, at least, because it basically isn't
Sure,
making testable predictions. And yeah, someday maybe it will, because like you said, like look, some human behaviors are instinctual, and the rest of them have to at least be made possible by our genomes. So like,
Right,
there's
right,
something
exactly.
there, but like the current endeavor is nonsense. And yeah, that's similar to what's going on here. But here we go.
To think about my reaction, I realized that it was really a faith commitment from my side. I knew very little. I started to study biochemistry.
Now that might actually be true, right? Because
Sure.
most people who believe that evolution is true don't believe it for like rigorous reasons that they've themselves investigated and looked into all the research, right? Because that's one of the things about expertise, right? So most people also don't know everything about their car. They just go to the mechanic and they're like, well, the mechanic said this, and like he knows better than I do, so sure. The same thing is true for evolution. So my guess is that yeah, it is true. So I guess I'll take a drink. It probably was true that this guy basically accepted evolution because people he trusted told him to. And you can call that faith if you want. I don't know. I'm not here to tell you what faith is. Look, that's a
If he
whole
was
big thing.
If he was in, if he's biotechnology now, that means he at least had probably a couple biology classes at some point, and he was probably
Mhm.
told about evolution and was like, yeah, okay, I'm learning about this in class or whatever, and everyone seems to accept evolution, so that's good for me. And that's fine.
Yep.
Fine.
Yep. And as David DB Numbers points out, most people who are aware that the Earth is a sphere believe it for similar reasons. Yeah, look, most of the true beliefs that you have are probably going to be based on believing people who you have good reason to think know better than you. And that's okay, because you've only got so much life to live. You cannot spend all of it investigating every single thing you believe until you have full justification in it. Like, it's not possible. You will die of old age before you get to even a small percentage of all the things that are true that you believe. You have to rely on experts for many things. So, I mean, welcome to the human condition, right? But the things you really care about, you can investigate. So let's see. Here we go.
At that time, and I saw that the biochemistry behind evolutionary story is not that strong. And after 40 years of doing science now, I see even much less evidence.
Science or engineering?
For this evolutionary story. Biology has proved to be much more complex than we thought 40 years ago.
Okay, we're going to take a drink for complexity, therefore God. So give me a second here. Here's the thing about design. Humans, for good reason, tend to design things to be relatively simple, right? Because you don't want a whole bunch of points of failure. Whereas biology is often completely off the wall, crazy complicated for no particular reason. Just kind of cuz. And
40.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I was going to say 45% of your genome is just segments that copy themselves.
Yep. So, like, why? And the answer is no particularly good reason. Like, literally, no particularly good reason.
Yeah, they just happen to have a sequence of DNA that amplifies their own polymerization, or their own, DNA polymerase, RNA polymerase to bind to them, causing them to be like an RNA sequence, and then retro-transcribed, or in the case of transposons, just duplicated.
Yep.
And it's just for no other reason than that. That's literally it. That's the whole reason. Have a sequence that is more likely to get transcribed. That's the whole thing.
So, evolution predicts that things will get more complicated than they need to be. Design should predict that things will not get more complicated than they need to be. And what do we see? We see that things are more complicated than they need to be. So, one for evolution.
Yeah, and the justifications that ID proponents and creationists have to come up with are just staggering. Oh no, this gene, or this pseudogene, right? It's not actually a pseudogene. It's doing something. It just doesn't have a promoter region or several of its important introns. Because we can look at the homology of this gene with the pseudogene with a functional gene in other species. It's doing something, guys. Doesn't matter that we can see that it's not doing anything. Its transcription is indistinguishable from random noise. It's missing major components. No. It's absolutely vital to our existence. Just baffling.
Yeah.
Baffling.
All right, here we go.
Darwin had no idea, of course, what the cell looks like, what the information system is like, what the complexity of the cell is.
Because it wouldn't be figured out for 70 more years? Well, sorry, that's 70 years after his death.
Right, but technically correct, so we'll take a drink. Because it's true, Darwin didn't know. Oh, David DB Numbers says, design proponents. Don't you mean C design proponentists? Yeah.
I do absolutely mean that, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't get that one, look into the Dover case regarding intelligent design and evolution and creationism.
Nature is resisting change. Living cell resist change.
What does that mean? What does it mean that living cells resist change?
Does that mean like aging doesn't occur? Is
I
that
don't
what
know.
that means?
Maybe. It doesn't mean anything as near as I can tell.
30
Also, I love Darwin like lovingly caressing lichen for no reason.
I do that. You don't do that.
I don't actually know. Although to be fair, there isn't a whole lot of
Well-
lichen here.
I was actually looking at there are 2 different species of lichen on my mailbox just today.
Are you sure that there were 2 different species? What if there were like, just 1.5 species because it was like the same fungal species but different photosynthetic symbiotes?
I do not believe that to be the case.
All right, I'm just gonna say that's a thing that happens.
They were different. They were quite different morphologically.
Okay, then yeah, probably not.
I mean, well, yeah, that certainly does happen, right? But these were quite different morphologically, so I do not.
Fair enough. Lichen
Anyway.
is weird and complicated, and I love it. Here we go.
years ago,
much
20
like money,
years
they're not
ago,
real.
in the early days of genetic engineering, people were envisaging changing organism at will. It hasn't happened.
I mean, it
In what sense?
kind of
what
has,
is that?
though. Yeah.
If you go to the pet store, you will find fish that have like Idarian genes in them, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Plus, it's at the point now where we can insert about any gene we want into the genome of about any organism, and we can get it to express. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
it's not hard. That's done like all the time. There
Yeah.
are entire fields like what is it immunofluorescence, right?
mhm.
Like you put genes that are like tagged with fluorescent markers, and then they make these like fluorescent proteins and all this sort of stuff, and then you can track the metabolic process and everything. Like, what do you mean that hasn't happened?
I
The
mean,
whole field of science.
we're not at the point where we're having like designer pets or babies or something, I guess. But like that's because there's
Sure.
ethical and monetary considerations. So like, but like,
No
yeah,
feather crocodiles for you.
I want my floofy alligators, man. Just let me have
Alligators,
floofy
yeah.
alligators and let me ignore bioethics for this one thing. I say that, but like for all I know, it would be like a horribly suffering alligator baby, and I would feel terrible.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I get it. Okay, that just made me sad. You know what else made me sad? Okay. So, you guys might not... This is a little off topic, but it relates to feathers and archosaurs and me being sad about those things together. So, there's a movie, White Zombie. It's famous for being basically the first zombie movie ever made. And they have a quote-unquote vulture. Except they didn't get a vulture. They got a golden eagle and just plucked its head feathers out.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's horrifying. And as I'm watching the movie, I'm like, I am not okay with this. Like, this makes me very uncomfortable. That this poor golden eagle was just plucked to stand in for a vulture. And it's very obvious that it's a golden eagle. Like, this does not look like a vulture. This looks like a 1/6 plucked golden eagle. It's really gross, and I don't like it. And if any of you guys are subscribed to the CBAD show, which like maybe one of you is, that's the CBADD show. That is a thing that is scheduled to premiere on Sunday. Is our commentary track of White Zombie, in which yes, I will point out that the quote unquote vulture is a tortured golden eagle and not a vulture, and it's not okay. I'm just glad that by now that poor animal has felt the sweet embrace of death by this point. So, my goodness. All right, now that I've brought everyone down, let's
Except
yeah,
Except me,
and
I
yes,
guess.
you know what? The chat is pointing out like that is not okay, and oh my god, yeah, it's
no, that's awful. That's
This-
animal cruelty.
this is a movie
Lord.
from a different time. And yeah, they definitely did not have the tag that no animals were harmed in making this film, because one definitely was, and it's really gross. And I'm gonna hit play because I want to stop thinking about that poor animal.
The examples are minor. We can produce insulin with bacteria. We can produce epohormone with bacteria.
Thought he just said we can't do that.
Yeah, I'm taking a drink.
Thought he literally just said we can't do that.
Yep, so I'm taking a drink for that, and we'll just keep going.
Can we
can't.
rewind for a sec? Like,
Ooh.
I'm sorry, hold on. There's no way he just contradicted himself in like the span of like 30
Of course there
seconds.
is. He's a
There's no way.
creationist, but sure, here we go.
30 years ago, 20 years ago, in the early days of genetic engineering, people were envisaging changing organism at will. It hasn't happened. The examples are minor. We can produce insulin with bacteria. We can produce
so we can change
epohormone
organisms
with
at will.
bacteria, but we
But it's minor because he said so. You know what? Tell that to all the type 1
okay.
diabetics. That's minor. Just go find a
Yeah,
type 1
like-
diabetic, someone who doesn't produce their own insulin or sufficient insulin.
We
Like-
can't do this, but yes, we can, but it still doesn't matter.
Yeah,
like,
it's-
okay, guy, whatever.
It's minor for nebulous reasons that he doesn't bother to disclose.
Okay.
All right.
can't change bacteria to anything else than bacteria.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
Just drink for we can't change bacteria to anything else. Yeah, of course we
Dang.
can. And also, by the way, Charles Jackson here, Bad Jackson, characterized this guy as like some kind of geneticist who worked all the time with bacteria and who left evolution after he realized that he couldn't turn bacteria into anything else. Except, no, he wasn't a geneticist. He was a biotech engineer, which is not the same thing.
Oh, and he probably never had an understanding of evolution to begin with, if that's his contention.
He didn't just not have an understanding. He admitted to not having an understanding. He said he didn't know much about evolution. He just accepted it, quote unquote, on faith. So,
Yep.
I don't.
Okay, I'm glad that's the guy that Evil Jackson looks up to, is the guy who says he doesn't understand how evolution works and then gets mad that he doesn't understand how evolution works.
By the way, Good Jackson, you know that when we do our Star Trek spin-off fan movie, we're gonna go to the Mirror Universe and we're gonna hire Dr. Charles Jackson to be your future Mirror Universe self, right?
Oh God.
Now, I know that he's already okay with starring in sci-fi shows because he's going to be starring in Quantum, the upcoming Young Earth creationist sci-fi show, which happens to be about Dr. Charles Jackson and evil Tommy Oliver, yes, the Green Ranger from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, going on adventures through time. So, but not that evil Tommy, the other evil Tommy, the one from Ninja Steel. Not the one from the Boom Studio comics, because there's two evil Tommies. Okay, that got way too nerdy. Here we go.
There you go. Thanks so much, Wes. That was wonderful. It only took 20 seconds. Brilliant. Thank you.
Oh,
But you can
claps.
see what they're up against. Science is saying none of the stuff that they say happens. They just pipe dream.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is a biotech engineer now the same as science? Is that what just happened?
He is science. He said, "I am become science."
Goodness. I'll take a drink for that stupidity, but also because, hey, Mahabharata reference. That's not often that we get one of those.
I try. I make it, at least once a month.
Fun
It's
fact.
such a rare.
The Mahabharata is the longest known epic poem in the world. And no, I haven't read all of it.
I feel pretty fun.
I've only read the part in the
feel pretty
Bhagavad
fun now.
Gita. But also my copy was like my copy of the Bhagavad Gita was like from some weird cult. So like I feel like I should get a less weird translation. But also I am lazy, so I probably won't. So yeah, whatever.
it out into and roll it out into an urban myth that just next thing you know they're pulling all these rabbits out of their hats, and they're tricking themselves. They don't mean to. I don't think most evolutionists are liars. Some of them are.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, I'm sure someone has
Generous.
lied while believing in evolution. Sure.
Some of them know,
Oh,
but they disciple and proselytize others into it. And
so much projection. You know what? We'll just drink for the projection. Why not? I'm thirsty. It's hot. I say it's hot while sitting here on March 15th. I get it. But, like, look, I live in Arizona. So,
56 degrees Fahrenheit where I am.
79 degrees Fahrenheit where I am.
Ooh, boy, I wish I had your weather over here.
The
I hate
high
cold.
today was 87 Fahrenheit.
I'm okay with that, too.
I'm normally okay with it, but I'm not okay with it being 87 inside while I'm streaming.
That's fair. That's a fair assessment.
And then droves and droves and generations of students are just fed this stuff that's untested.
Delicious.
Some of it is tested and it failed the test.
Says the guy who
Just
believes that in Dr. Nathaniel Jeanson's demonstrably wrong coalescence times for Y chromosome and mitochondrial DNA, which again, tune in on Thursday because we're going to talk about that stuff.
So, in case any of you are wondering as to whether or not evolution is testable, Apper and I already did a video last Thursday where we described a number of evolution experiments which had striking results in favor of evolution.
Weird.
Crazy stuff.
And remind me, are we
Wow.
going to be doing this again sometime soon?
We absolutely are. We're going to be doing it Thursday at 7 p.m. Are we back in standard time? Or
We're
no,
in daylight
central
saving time.
CDT
Mhm.
for me.
Look, here's what
Then-
you do. Go subscribe to Jackson Wheat. His channel is called Jackson Wheat. It's very easy. He's Breadman.
Crazy.
And then you'll be notified when you turn on the notifications. So Silver Hollow says, sorry about the JPEG thing. No, don't be sorry. Never be sorry for making a correction, even if it's something that I feel like even if it's like I acknowledge the correction, but I stick by what I said, still never apologize for sending a correction. Anyway, but after the brain damage, all I have is technically correct is the best kind of correct trivia I learned beforehand. No, look, Silver Harlow, please do not ever apologize for that. I appreciate the $5, but like you are more than happy to make any corrections on no matter how minute it is. Because the thing is, I value being right. And even in cases where like I'm okay with, like we said, a pedagogical lie just for the sake of getting a point across, it's always valuable to have the actual correct information. So yeah, please never apologize for correcting me on anything, no matter how trivial. Because I want, even in cases where I'm okay with being a little bit inaccurate for the sake of just getting through a point, where it's not like vital that the point be exactly understood by everyone, I would rather that people be right than wrong, generally speaking. And for people who are ready to accept like the more advanced, where we're doing stuff like color perception stuff with humans, great. I mean, there are definitely people who are ready for that. So yeah, we are more than good, Silver. Don't worry about it. Here we go.
And they just accept it because the professor must know. And the professor was taught by some expert who he thought, well, they must know.
Okay, I'm going to take a drink, and then we're going to talk about how science instruction works in a classroom setting after high school. Okay, so in your post-high school science classes, and hopefully in your high school science classes to some degree, what's actually going on is that you're being presented with data and ways to either analyze the data or experiments to perform. So for instance, in my biology class, I didn't just hear about how to extract DNA. I sat, granted in my parents' kitchen because they had more of the hardware I needed, but I sat in a kitchen and extracted DNA on my own. I didn't, basically the thing they had was a food processor. I didn't have that. So, yeah, I do now, but I borrowed my parents' food processor when I was in college, and I sat there and I extracted DNA, and I watched these little gray strands of DNA float around in my cup that had a bit of surfactant in it to help separate it out from the strawberry from which I was extracting the DNA. When I took astronomy, I didn't just accept that stars had the properties that I was told. I actually got data that was derived from sources I could go double check, and I derived the characteristics, and then I checked it against other aspects of the star that I wasn't given beforehand to see if the predictions matched. And they did. When you take college classes science classes in college, you do the science. Now, granted, it's usually experiments that have already been done thousands of times by other people. But still, you aren't just being told what to believe. You're being told how it was demonstrated that this thing is true, and then usually you're being sent to a lab to go do it yourself. Right?
Yeah. As someone who is TAing 2 labs this semester, can confirm. One of the labs is the botany lab, and in that one, that's more starting like
Drink for Guzzler.
Plant morphology. So the students come in and they look at like maybe spores or gametes or the
Jackson,
vascular system or what have you.
Jackson, none of that sex talks on my Christian Minecraft server.
No
gametes. Come on, man.
No gametes.
My ears will start bleeding.
Auditory receptacles. So people or these students can look at these parts like on slides and stuff under the microscope, or look at can dissect the plants on the dissection scopes or what have you. And then in the 120 lab that I am TAing, this is basically an intro to bio. So students are learning like, what do enzymes do? Do enzymes have optimum conditions under which they operate? That sort of stuff. And, they learn in the lecture, enzymes have optimum conditions. Then what you do, you take an enzyme like alcohol dehydrogenase, and you run a reaction involving it under a set of varying conditions. And you can see, okay, under which conditions does it perform reaction most efficiently? And then you can say, after you've done it, oh, hey, here are optimum conditions under which enzymes work. And here's how I know.
Yeah, because you did
They
the experiment.
They have to write a report on those experiments and the graphs that they got from doing the experiments. That's how science works. Crazy world.
Yeah. So, and the thing is, okay, you know what Dr. Charles Jackson is a doctor of?
What would it be, G?
It's education. He knows better. So, remember all that time he was talking about, oh, some evolutionists are just lying to you? Yeah, well, there's a reason I'm calling that projection there Doctor of Education Charles Jackson. Because you know better. And I know you know better, because you couldn't have gotten a doctorate in education without knowing better. So, here we go.
Yep.
Something I don't. Well, no, they don't. They just accepted what they were taught
Wanna
by
bet?
people they respect,
Right.
too. Marilyn
Not
Vos
too
Savant, who's in the Guinness Book of World Records for having the highest IQ, she disagrees with the Big Bang Theory, and she said much of science, far too much, is based on a matter of you're believing things that have been told you by people you respected.
Okay,
So, okay.
IQ,
Sure.
pretty meaningless, actually, as it turns out. It's an okay-ish predictor of, like, long-term wealth accumulation, but it's even not really great at that. But also, it is also true that many people believe things not because they proved it to themselves, but because someone else has said something, which, yeah, that's fair enough. But,
do a lot of people believe that? Sure.
Yeah.
I'll even grant that.
Do the experts in the field believe it for that reason? No, because as we said, they've done the work beforehand to actually know that it's true on the basis of experiments that they've run. So, yeah. Also, I really don't know why we're citing someone because they have the Guinness Book of World Record highest IQ.
Because
It's
they
such a
smart,
weird...
Dapper.
No.
Dapper, he literally cited the other dude because he's smart.
I
He
know.
has a degree in something, therefore he's smart about everything. Not just
I
about
hate
one
it.
specific thing, about everything.
You're right, and I
You know
hate
I'm
it.
right. There you go. That's what I'm saying. All right.
It's like a political contest or something. It's really not science anymore like it used to be. Okay. Oh,
Like
by
it
the way,
used to
now
be.
that it's 8:15, I've kind of been going for an hour, but I told you I'm giving you the deep shovel version of this. How long can I actually go? Oh, I see. Okay,
Hold
so
on.
You can go for another 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 50 seconds. That's how much time we have.
Actually, I'll let him read this, and then
Okay.
we'll deconstruct it.
Go.
So I'm not going to cut out anything. I do want to have time for question and answer. Hey, you guys went to a lot of trouble to get me here, and so I figure let's milk it. Okay, brother. All right. I know we've got young people here, but it's not like you're staying up watching a Star Wars marathon or something. Although that's kind of neat. This is educational. Okay.
Yes, Dr. Jackson, we get it. You'd like to give out your nerd cred.
Jeffrey Schwartz
Knows
from University
two-
of Pittsburgh said,
Or maybe 3.
Yes, he's aware of three
Sci-fi
sci-fi
series.
franchises. Yeah,
Right. That was
Great.
yeah, okay.
great. I don't care. My goodness. Look, this is just like Steve Buscemi like coming up with the skateboards. Like, hello, fellow kids.
Yeah.
Vishanti, who has been a member for 8 months at the tetrapod level, says science is not top down, but she says it with a King Ghidorah emoji, so we take a drink. And it's true. Creationists have a tendency to think of science as like Moses comes down from the mountain with the tablets inscribed by the hand of God. And of course, we're going to ignore for now the fact that he broke those tablets, but whatever. And that's the truth of science. Oh my goodness, that's the thing. I'm like, no, that's not how science works. Science doesn't care about personalities, it cares about data. If you made a wonderful, amazing discovery, you'll be famous. But if in the future you say crazy things that don't have data to back them up, no one's going to believe it. Well, not no one, but the scientific community is not going to accept it as true just because you're a famous guy who says it. It's just not how the science works.
in an article in Biological Theory Journal, 2007, an article called "Do Molecular Clocks Run at All?" He said about those mutational changes. That struck me that this model of constant
Molecular
change was
clocks.
never challenged.
Yeah.
If our molecules were constantly changing, he means DNA molecules, it would threaten proper survival.
All right, let's pause for a sec. Okay, so actually, can we slide back just a little bit so we can look at the quote? Okay, so first, well, aside from the fact that I've never heard of this journal before, I'm just gonna let that slide. But I'm not disagreeing with anything in this quote. What I'm willing to bet he's talking about is the constant speedism that Darwin proposed, essentially, the phyletic gradualism. And what I'm also willing to bet, prediction, is that he's referring to this in a historical context, because that idea of constant speedism did sort of go unchallenged for a long time. It wasn't until I think it was like the 40s and 50s that started to get guys like Simpson. You started to get guys like George Gaylord Simpson, and then
I
later.
thought you were going to say Homer Simpson. But yeah, I guess
No.
George Gaylord Simpson makes sense. Go!
And Niles Eldridge and Stephen Jay Gould, who were like, yeah, maybe evolution is not, it's constant change. Maybe there are periods of rapid change and then stasis.
Yeah, relative
And
stasis, relatively
we-
rapid change.
Right, and that's absolutely incorporated into molecular clocks now. Your genes
What?
change at different rates. If you try to do, and this is true, like anytime you try to use a gene to like do a phylogeny, if you take, for instance, all humans, you sequence like cytochrome C, it's going to be identical for all humans. You cannot do a phylogeny of humans using cytochrome C, or at least I'd be willing to bet.
Yeah, probably not.
There, could you do it with like, the
Like butterflies
called
and carp and human and bears? Yeah, probably.
yeah, you could do that. I was trying to think of the haplogroups. Could you use like the mitochondrial haplogroups to generate a phylogeny of humans? Yeah,
Absolutely.
you could do that
Yeah.
because they change at a much, much greater rate. And right, to your point, could you do it for very distantly related organisms like humans, bears, and trouts and butterflies? Yeah, cytochrome C would work a lot better in those cases, because you've had a lot more time to change. And nowadays, that's just That's just part of the theory. Like, if you try to do a molecular clock and you just assume constant speedism, that's not good.
No.
It's not how that works. You can't do that.
All right, guys. Well, we're actually going to start wrapping it up. So, Jackson, what do you have coming up on your channel? I know we already covered some of it, but repeat that, and what else you got?
So on the channel, you and I will be talking this Thursday, 7 p.m. CDT, about evolution. We're going to be talking about continuing with our discussion of the process of evolution. And the script for genetic sequencing or gene sequencing is done. It just has to be made into a video, but
nice.
Maybe I can get that done next week. We shall see. And then at some point, the next video in the Ancestor's Tale series, which is the Gorilla's Tale.
Okay. Well, let's see. So, nothing on this channel tomorrow, but the next day at, I think I have it scheduled already. I think it's like 11 a.m. Pacific and 2 p.m. Eastern, but it might be like 12 and 3. I'm not sure because I don't remember. We have the next episode of Busting Dismantled. This one is about created heterozygosity, so that is exciting. That's me and Gutsa Gibbon and Dr. Dan Stern Cardinal from the Creation Myths channel. So do please be here for that. It's going to be great. I actually already know that because I already had the conversation. It was great. Saturday, I believe I'm doing another episode of Giants of North America, and I think the subtitle in this case will be in Romanian, I think is what I agreed to. And that's as far ahead as I'm going to look right now. That's what's coming up this week. So do look forward to those things. And then next week on Dr. Dan's channel, we'll be doing part 5 of the Busting Dismantled. And then the week after that, we'll be going back to Gutsa Gibbon's channel for the finale of that. So there you go. I think that covers basically all the channel announcements I want to make. Really, we are cutting this one off a little bit early, but that's because I think we got to a good stopping time. And, you know, spoiler alerts, we're going to be back next week for more Jackson with Jackson. Because today is the slot that Maddie from Science Side Up normally would have been in, but she is doing like her finals, and she's got some other stuff in the I was gonna say in the works, like it's for her YouTube. She has some other stuff going on that makes it hard for her to be here for that. However, tomorrow on Cheshire Vic's channel, Guns, Magic, and Steel will be having an episode at 4 p.m. Pacific, which is 7 Eastern, and I probably won't be there, but I might be because I have, like I said, I have to get to a hospital tomorrow, and that may interfere. But if you want to see Gutsa Gibbon and Cheshire Vic and Maddie from Science Side Up, as well as TD Lane and Luke, Gutsa Gibbon's fiance, all play D&D, and maybe me, but probably not, but maybe, go check that out. We're all extremely nerdy, and it's a lot of fun. But with that, I am going to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you come for the rest of the shows this week. Thank you very much for super chatting, everybody. Thank you so much to Nope Nope for being on the patron, my newest Patreon member. Like I said, I am doing a drive. It really would help out a lot if you donate any amount to the Patreon, because like I said, I'm trying to get to 400. We need $107 more per month, which is not a whole lot. I mean, if everyone here gave $2, we would more than make it. So please do consider it. If you can't afford it, then please don't. But here are the end credits. Thanks for watching this video, but before you go, I'd like to take a minute to thank my channel members and patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Bent Hovend, Denny5252, Ian Chen, John Ackerman, Chris Love, Landon Knoll, Sphincter of Doom, and Patrick Dennis. Without the help of the people whose name you see on screen right now, this channel simply wouldn't exist. If you'd like to join the team, there's links in the description to my Patreon, as well as a join button right below this video that will allow you to join on YouTube. Joining gets you access to an exclusive Discord server, early access to my videos, often more than a month in advance, as well as other perks depending on how much you decide to pledge. However, if a monthly or annual pledge isn't for you, There are other ways to support the channel, including a merch store down in the description. And hey, just liking and sharing this video always helps a lot. Thank you very much. I'm the Dapper Dinosaur.